course, today we're going to be doing this with our partner, National Powersport Auctions. And before we jump right into the webinar, I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of our housekeeping. I know many of you have joined lots of our webinars, so you're probably quite familiar with this, but anytime today throughout the webinar, if you have questions or comments about what we're seeing and being presented today, please just type in your questions. We're going to answer those as we can throughout the webinar. And we're going to also allow some time at the end of today's webinar to answer more of those questions so everybody can hear the questions and the answers. So feel free to put those in as you go. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to today's presenters. We're excited to have a crew here today to really help you understand the integration between Lightspeed and National Powersport Auctions. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian Tierney to do a quick introduction.
Thank you, Diana, and welcome, folks. Thanks for joining us today. As Diana had mentioned, my name is Brian Tierney. I've been with the Lightspeed organization in various capacities for just about 13 years. Today, my role with the business in marketing and sales is the customer development manager. But prior to my time with the Lightspeed organization, I worked in a dealership here in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I'm talking to you from. Worked in various departments, spent most of my time behind a parts counter using Lightspeed, and started back in 1995. Which means I've been using Lightspeed and working in the industry for just about 30 years now. So thanks for having me. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Thanks, Brian. My name is Ryan Keefe, VP of Marketing for National Powersport Auctions. Been in the powersports industry for about 20 years. In the last 13 years, I've been at MPA, focused on pre-owned and how it impacts the powersports industry.
Today, what we're going to cover is a number of things related to inventory. We're going to look at a couple of different outlets to manage inventory, from National Powersport Auctions to Lightspeed, and how those two entities collaborate together. We're going to talk about National Powersport Auction, who they are. We're also going to reintroduce you to Lightspeed. Those of us on the call today that haven't been familiarized with Lightspeed, we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to talk about the current state of the used market. We'll talk about major unit inventory, which is kind of a funny word. Those of you that haven't heard that term before, we're referring to whole goods or vehicles that live in your sales inventory. We'll go into more definition and detail about that shortly. We'll talk about the NPA value guides that exist in Lightspeed and within the program NPA. And we'll also talk about some inventory management tools, reporting, and analytics that live in both environments. And of course, at the end, we'll take some time for questions as we go through the presentation. But just to introduce you to Lightspeed, those of you that are not familiar with Lightspeed, I know some of you on the call are, and great, it's wonderful to have you. Thanks for joining us. And for the folks that are new to the company, to Lightspeed and what Lightspeed is, well, Lightspeed is a dealer management solution that really started in about 1983 here in Salt Lake City, Utah. A gentleman by the name of Hal Ethington at a Honda motorcycle store and was looking for a solution for managing parts inventory. Had a friend named Ernie who happened to be a program designer way back in the early 80s. Can't even imagine what that would have looked like back then, but nonetheless, he was a DOS computer programmer. The two of them got together, created a program to manage parts inventory in Hal's dealership. Well, as time went by, other dealerships started to take notice. Folks wanted to take part in that program, and the program grew. Went from a DOS program to a Windows-based program and to the Linux program that it is today, where we have a parts, service, sales, rental, CRM, and an accounting solution for businesses in a variety of industries, from power sports to marine to RV to trailer, golf, outdoor power equipment, and really dipping our toes into a number of other industries as well. And today have just about 4,000 dealerships across North America. We're proud of our achievements, proud of where we're going. We're always innovating, always growing, which is what brought us together today with National Powersport. What really brought us together today is inventory management. That's kind of the topic for today's discussion. And really, as you're looking at the image on the screen here, you can see we're illustrating that inventory is money. And one of the kind of thought experiments that I like to do when it comes to inventory, and specifically we're talking about vehicle inventory, that major unit inventory, if you can imagine all of those motorcycles, boats, RVs, power equipment, all those vehicles that are on your showroom floor, maybe in your back warehouse or on your lot, represent little stacks of money. Each one of those investments is money that you've used to purchase those assets. And ultimately, your goal is to generate some revenue with those assets. But if you envision each of those vehicles as piles of money, over time, those piles start to get smaller. And our goal here today is to show you some ways to prevent those piles from getting smaller. In fact, we want those piles to grow, and that's really what brought us together today. So we're going to show you some tools that exist in National Powersport Auction and also in Lightspeed so that you can make those piles of money grow.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And again, thank you everybody for taking the time to join the webinar today. What I'd like to cover from NPA side of this webinar is a little bit about NPA, where the current pre-owned market is at, and then some of the NPA tools that are integrated into Lightspeed that will help you be more efficient and more profitable in your dealership. So at a high level, National Powersport Auctions was created in 1990 by a couple of dealers here in San Diego. Since then, we've expanded 9 locations nationwide, selling about 80,000 Powersports RV and marine vehicles annually. We work with the nation's largest banks, credit unions, most manufacturers, and about 4,000 Powersport dealers who buy and sell through us annually. Now, most of you guys know, Brian, you want to jump to the next slide? There we go. Awesome. Most of you guys know us as the auction company, which we are. You know, we do 2 to 3 live auctions a week. We also offer online auctions that run 24/7. But there's some additional services that we offer that I just wanted to highlight here before jumping into the pre-owned market. From a remarketing side with all of our lenders, we offer a full suite of remarketing services, from picking up the repo at the yard all the way to a 100-point inspection to verify or look through any repairs that might be needed before an auction. The real-time valuation tools, which we'll jump into a little bit later, so I'll jump past that, and our nationwide transportation. We've always utilized third-party transporters to get vehicles around the country, but more recently, we've invested in our own semis that help move inventory from one NPA location to another. This helps dealers around the country be able to buy from additional NPA locations and get it shipped to their nearest NPA location. Data services is something that's newer that we work on, but what that is a large product options of different data. So if you're looking for depreciation on specific makes or models, or if you're a bank or a large dealership group that wants to just get a true ACV value of your entire inventory portfolio for what it's worth at auction today, and know what your investment is in that, that's where the data services will come in and be able to supply that information for you. And lastly is our expansion of RV, marine, and golf car. As you can see on the next slide, awesome. We are now selling hundreds of boats, RVs, and golf cars every single month through our NPA facilities. So if any of those RV, marine, golf car dealers out there today interested in learning more about that, be happy to speak to that after the webinar. All right, so why is pre-owned important? Well, for starters, it definitely separates you from your competition. Unlike new, where you're selling the same models, the same MSRP, and the same rebates, it's highly unlikely that a dealer down the street from you has that same 2021 R1 with 394 miles in mint condition. It also gives your consumers more options when buying vehicles. They might have come in looking for something new, but due to their credit or the monthly payment, especially with these interest rates, they're unable to make that payment. So used gives you more options for that customer before they walk out of that dealership. Sourcing is a huge piece of pre-owned and something that we talk about often here at NPA. Now, being from NPA, I would love to tell you that you should buy every single used vehicle from our auction, but if you're doing that, you're doing that wrong. You should be sourcing from everywhere. Your service department, trade-ins, obviously, and off the street. Now, one of the things I want to talk about sourcing the inventory is that graph on the right there. Now, for marine and RV dealers, this is specifically for Powersports, but your TAM or total available market is pretty similar from the standpoint of registered vehicles on an annualized basis. So from a sourcing standpoint, or options to gain more pre-owned inventory and more demand, I want to just go through a little math with you here. So you can see on the right that in 2023, 11.6 million motorcycles were registered in the US. 660,000 of those were new motorcycles. That means there's 10.9 million motorcycles in the US that are registered every year that are being ridden on the roads. We also know that there's about 2.4 million used motorcycles that are sold each year. If you deduct the 600,000 units from there, there's about 1.8 million transactions of used vehicles going through consumers and dealerships. So there's a large demand annually for customers that are looking for pre-owned inventory. And you already have some of those sources available to you. Your service department, trade-ins, putting a banner on your dealership that says "We buy bikes." These are all great options for you to acquire additional inventory to supplement your new at your dealership. All right, so now that we understand that there's a huge opportunity with used, what does it look like and where's the market currently at? So yes, this graph has a lot of lines. I apologize, but what I want to show you is where the pre-owned market was, where it went, and now where we are. So if you start in the lower left at that 8K number, this is the average selling price of vehicles at auction. Again, this is clean Powersports. You can see that the light blue lines are the monthly transactions, and you can see them right around the 8,000 and start to dip in the fall and winter. Now that's normal for Powersports seasonality, nothing to be afraid of. Now, if we jump up to the 11,000 mark up there, that yellow line, that was the peak of COVID pricing. That was when dealers weren't able to get new product, needed as much used as possible, and this is what they were paying for their vehicles. But what I want to focus on here is that in June of 2022, you can see that steep decline coming back down. So we now know that the market is dropping. It's continued to drop through that green 2023 line, and then focus on the purple line right there at 9K. That's what we're currently seeing at auction pricing. So we don't expect any of those giant jumps again, and we don't expect any of those major falls anymore. What we like to feel or say here at MPA is that things are getting back to normal. The normal Powersports seasonality curve is taking effect, and we expect 2024 to smooth back out and start to gradually decline throughout the winter years. And we don't see the pricing ever getting back to 2018, 2019 due to inflation. All right. So great high level overview of where the Powersports market is at. What I wanted to show you all as well is broken down by category, right? Most dealers aren't selling everything, so let's break it down by category. For you RV and marine dealers, I have that information for you on the right over there. You can see. Now, we don't sell as many units for RV as marine as we do Powersports, so there is more fluctuation in these graphs. But what I want to show everybody on this call is that if you look at the black dotted line right there, that is the 5-year average pricing. Right? So you can see that typically there is a nice little rise, about 10% in most categories in the spring, and it will fall anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe sometimes 20% in the summer, fall, and winter. And as to Brian's earlier point, when you have a lot of inventory and trying to manage that inventory appropriately, and there could be a 10 to 20% swing in valuations of that inventory from maybe when you bought it to when you need to sell it, it's extremely important for you to understand where and when and how and what tools to use to make sure that you're pricing that inventory appropriately. All right. So we've covered where the market's at. We've covered by the categories, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. But how do you remain and stay successful in pre-owned Powersports and RV and marine for that matter? Stick to a plan. The money is made in the buy on pre-owned. That's the only way you're going to be successful in pre-owned, is if you buy that vehicle right, and you ACV it appropriately, you have a much higher chance of getting out of that and making the sufficient margin necessary. So what we like to say is accurately ACV each vehicle. Work with your team to define and stick to a standard evaluation process. Depending on the types of inventory that you're looking at, it could be pretty complicated to make sure that you've inspected each piece of that vehicle or vessel and understand exactly what you're getting into. So work with your team, define a process, and stick to that process. We also recommend using a detailed appraisal form. This helps, one, transparency with the customer, but two, making sure that you don't miss anything when you're doing the valuations on those vehicles. And the last thing that is extremely important, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, but is knowing and sticking to your turn time. Whether that turn time is 60 days, 90 days, maybe in the Northeast, it's 120 because of weather. Whatever that time is for your dealership that makes sense, stick to that time. If you let it go past that with the books changing, the market changing, that's a depreciating asset, and it's only going to continue to depreciate. So how do you make sure you buy right? That's where the MPA Value Guide comes in. If you show all that data that I just went over, we have 80,000 transactions, multiply that by 25 years of business. We have a lot of data at your fingertips that we make available to every dealer that's with MPA, a member of MPA, so that they can make the right choices. We break it down by region. We break it down by months, because as you know, there's seasonality from spring, fall, summer, winter, condition, mileage, color. All this information is available to you so that when you or your team are buying used inventory, you have the right data to make the right decisions for your business. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Brian so he can show you how to access this information in Lightspeed.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Ryan. Great information. We're going to talk about major unit inventory, what that looks like in Lightspeed. And going back to that term major unit inventory, I remember back in 95 when I first started using Lightspeed, and I think I've told this story to some of you folks before. The word major unit inventory was a strange word to me. I thought, what in the heck does that mean? Who invented that word? I still think that 30 years later. But anyway, major unit inventory refers to motorcycles, ATVs, boats, golf cars, anything that lives in your sales inventory. So just to kind of introduce that topic, because it's going to come up a couple times as we go through Lightspeed, we're going to look at a major unit inventory record in two different platforms, the desktop version as well as the mobile application, but we're also going to talk about those NPA value guides and a really cool integration that exists inside your system that you may or may not know about. We'll show you what that looks like in the program and how you can utilize it not only in the inventory record, but also if you're managing a sales deal and you're bringing in a trade units, give you some tools to make sure that you're buying that trade appropriately in the sales process. So let's take a look at Lightspeed and go through some of those things together. I'm going to pull up the Lightspeed desktop, and those of you that are familiar with this is essentially the login screen for the program. Those of you that haven't seen this before, this is what you'll see when you log into Lightspeed, and across the top of the screen are the different departments. We're going to focus on sales for the moment, and I'm going to go to that funny word, major unit inventory. When I select major unit inventory, I'm bringing up a list of all the vehicles or whole goods or major units that exist inside my sales department. I can see anything from consigned units to new units, used units, stock number, year, make, model, VIN number, color, but most importantly for our discussion today, a column designated for age. And this is showing number of days that unit's been in inventory. And that's going to be a critical piece in understanding how to appropriate your NPA tools with the Lightspeed system. So I'm going to drill into a specific unit. I'm going to go into one that I happen to know is in my inventory for quite some time. I'm going to select this used Harley Davidson. And just first, before I jump into the detail, point out the fact that that unit has existed in my inventory now for 677 days. It's had a couple of birthdays, and that's not a good thing, right? So if I go into the major unit record, I can see what MSRP is, what technically my selling price is, and I might have even reduced the price using a dealer price because I know it's been here a while. I'm going to take a hit on it, so I've reduced the price, and essentially it's going to be on sale, for lack of a better term, for $12,999, and I'm into that unit 11,800. That's what it cost me. That might be a flooring value, an AP value. That's my cost, okay? If I go to the value guide screen where we have a connection to NPA, and I place my cursor over the lookup button and press the button under the current NPA value guide selection on the value guide, I'm going to click Get Date by VIN. It's going to look over to National Powersport Auctions webpage essentially and pull information based on current values of what that unit is worth. And I can actually get a report, a National Powersport Auction report of the value of that unit, average trade values, average retails, and it's going to give me a sense of am I into this unit correctly. So looking at the values on the report, boy, I'm really upside down in this unit, as you can see, based on the details. Value ranges between 8,500 and 9,600. On the low end, 3,500 to 7,500. And I'm into this, I believe, 11,800. So I'm upside down. I've got a problem. I really need to unload this unit before I lose any more money on it. Going back to those piles of money, my pile of money is shrinking with regard to this particular unit. So at this point, I can certainly dump the price, put it on display, try to sell it on my lot, or have another option. The bottom left side of this record is a consign to NPA button, where I can press that button. A window comes up which allows me to enter a reserve value. What do I have to get for that unit at auction? Do I want to get that firm value, or do I want to get within $500? So I just want to get close to that. And I can select that based on what I'm going to input and send over to NPA. I'll enter my mileage, whether it's actual, whether it's close, contact information. And Ryan, I'm going to ask you to speak to the battery decline button, if you don't mind.
Yep, no problem. So it's common for us when we receive vehicles to receive a vehicle with a dead battery. If we have a dead battery, we are unable to do the full complete inspection that we do for all of our vehicles at NPA. So you're going to get a really low score when really, if you would have put in a $100 battery, you would have brought that CR rating up from 55, 60, a non-runner, to fully running. Here's the mileage, matches the title, and high CR score around high 70s, low 80s, assuming that it's been on your dealership floor. So do not decline the battery.
Perfect. Good advice. And then I'm going to hit submit to NPA. And that detail is going to get sent directly to National Powersport Auctions webpage, just as though you were to open up their page directly. Kind of gives you a shortcut from Lightspeed to being able to do that. And at that point, Ryan, I might ask for your advice regarding transportation of the vehicle. You had mentioned that NPA provides some transportation options to deliver that vehicle to auction. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yep. So, like I said earlier, we work with several third-party carriers for both inbound and outbound transportation. If you do not have your own shop truck and driver that can come drop it off, reach out to our transportation department. We'll gladly provide you a pickup date and a quote so that you can determine if that's what's best for your dealership.
Perfect. Perfect. So just to show a couple of other tools, we looked at the major unit record on the desktop. For some folks, you may not be aware that Lightspeed also has a mobile application, and I'm going to pull up a little bit of a demonstration of the Lightspeed mobile application, really just another tool that's at your fingertips that allows you to manage inventory. And what you're seeing now on your screen is an example of the Android environment. Now, this works in Apple environments as well, tablets and cell phones, and it gives you access to a number of features and functions. Specifically today, we're going to talk about major unit inventory. And when I press that major unit inventory button, I can then look based on a series of filters or a series of search types for the unit in question or units in question, see what kind of inventory records I've got available to me, select the units, and I can see those same details on the Lightspeed screen that we saw, or I'm sorry, on the mobile application that we saw on the desktop screen a moment ago. I can see things like, you'll notice the age of the vehicle is present on the mobile application. We've got some really old units. I'll also point out, just to kind of give myself some saving grace on these older units, is there's a little bit of a padlock icon. And for those of you that know, you know that there's a deposit on those units. We might want to find out why those units are still here if there's money on them, but that gives us a little bit of detail to search. But as I scroll down, if I get into one that doesn't have a deposit, we've got a Harley Davidson that's been sitting in my inventory, the same one that we saw on the desktop, 677 days in inventory. Now from this screen, I can go into the record. I can see price, I can see selling price, I can see additional details like parts and features that are applied to that unit, in addition to pictures. So this is really just giving me the ability to, at my fingertips from the mobile device that's already in my pocket, to communicate information to my clients on the sales floor, in the parking lot, at McDonald's if I'm at lunch, to be able to communicate that inventory that I've got in Lightspeed, and really to manage that inventory in a different way than the desktop version of Lightspeed. Also wanted to introduce another concept related to the NPA value guides and related to pricing and costing your inventory appropriately. So we're going to exit the major unit inventory screen for just a moment, and we're going to go to sales and leads, quotes, and deals. This is kind of the customer facing side of the sales department. This is where all of the activity that your sales folks are interacting with the customers, the units, forms, etc. The deal desking screens is what we're looking at now. And as we look at the list of deals, we can see the deal date, when it was created, deal number, customer name, stage name, which is color coded to give us a sense of where we're at in terms of process and progress through the workflow of the deal, stock number, year, make, and model. We're going to pick up our story with Jeff Emig, who is buying a dirt bike from our dealership. He's trading in a street bike. His wife has told him, no more street bikes. You're getting in the dirt. If you're going to ride a motorcycle, it's going to be in the dirt. Not going to see you get hurt on the street, whatever that excuse is. So we've got Jeff's name at the top of the screen as the buyer. We've got Jenny. We've got the vehicle Mr. Jeff is going to purchase, but he's interested in trading in his street bike. So we go to the trade tab where we now have some details. We've got a sport motorcycle. We've got a VIN number. We've got a year, make, and model of the vehicle. We've already pre-entered that information, which, by the way, Lightspeed has the ability to decode VINs. So if I've got the VIN number of that vehicle, that trade vehicle, I can plug it into the VIN serial field, press the decode button, and Lightspeed's going to tell you what year, make, and model that is, which incidentally is some of that detail is provided by National Powersport Auction as well. So another benefit of having them as a partner. But more importantly, we want to know, what's this vehicle worth? What is it worth on a trade? How is it going to impact the deal? Customer wants to know that, and I want to know that. So I'm going to go to the deal information tab inside of Lightspeed, and here is where some of those value guides live. Similar to what we saw in the major unit record, it's just now inside the deal. And this is going to help me determine what the trade value is and potentially what that actual cash value is for that unit. So I'm going to press look up under NPA value guides, and I'm going to get that same report. I'm going to search by VIN, and it's going to return the same report that we saw in the major unit record, but I'm just in a little bit of a different access point within Lightspeed. And it's going to tell me that that vehicle should probably trade somewhere right around $1,800 to $2,400. Might have an average value of $4,600, but it gives me some information that I can use so that I cost this and price this vehicle appropriately. So I'm not upside down like I was on the last vehicle we looked at in Lightspeed. So now that I've looked that up, I'm going to close the report. And of course, I could print this. I can email this to the customer, just present it to them. So as we're having that negotiation discussion, I can say, well, I didn't just invent this detail. Here's a copy of the report from NPA. Take a look yourself. So we've got some details, some information, and information is important, right? So now I've got my NPA value. I've got average miles of what I typically see for this vehicle. I've got an average score. I've got how many of those units were sold during a given period of time. But I can see that that has an NPA value of about $2,700. So maybe I'm going to actually offer that. So I'll go ahead and put my $2,700 in the trade allowance field and in the ACV field. And that has now directly impacted my deal, and in some states also impacted taxes that are applied to the deal. But it's given me the proper information, and that's going to make me buy this vehicle at the right price. So next, we're going to talk about some other tools that live inside of Lightspeed. So far, we've looked at the major unit inventory record. We saw it both on the desktop. We saw it in the mobile application. We also looked at the deal desking screen and being able to apply appropriate values to trades through the deal process. But now we're going to look at some analytics, some reporting tools that you can use in Lightspeed to really manage more of a mass list of vehicles rather than going one by one in your inventory records. We'll take a look at some reports that we have in the system now. So go back to Lightspeed, and I'm going to go back to sales, and I'm going to select custom reports and go to major unit inventory. And in the major unit inventory custom reports list is going to be a pre-built series of reports, and the 701 and the 710 report are the ones we're going to focus on primarily. And I'm going to go ahead and run the 701 report first. And what I want to do is show you a couple of different ways to view the data. The first version of this report we're going to show is a graphic illustration of your inventory in terms of dollar values and makes. And you can see this pie chart, which is kind of fun to look at. It's graphic, it's colors, it's pretty. But I can see things like I've got Honda in my inventory, I've got Yamaha in my inventory, Victory, Triumph, and so on. And the vehicles that I'm focused on have hit multiple birthdays. So these dollar values that I'm seeing are the total cost for each of these makes that have exceeded a certain number of days in inventory. Now, if I want to see more of the detail, what's the meat and potatoes, what's the nuts and bolts about those units, if I run the 710 version of the report as a detail, I can actually see stock number, year, make, model. I can see what I'm actually costing each individual unit record at, and I can see how many birthdays that unit has had. So I can see based on an organization of makes, my BMWs, my Harleys, my Hondas, my Kawasaki's are all grouped together. Stock number, year, make, model, total cost. Now I might have a unit cost that's different than inventory amount. And the reason is I've got some parts and labor sold to some of those units. Some of them I don't, but it's showing what I'm into those units, including parts and labor. And of course the age. And this is something that you're going to want to keep tabs on. And if you hit a certain point in time, and Ryan, tell me what was that point in time that we want to kind of keep tabs on?
We tell most dealers between 60 and 90 days.
So you can see I'm way past that. So we've far exceeded our expiration date on these vehicles, but forgive me for that, Ryan. But if we've hit those birth dates, if we've hit those timelines, we now know that these are vehicles that we can send and consign with NPA. So it really gives us the tools to manage our inventory, to make sure that we're pricing things appropriately. We've got some ways to make decisions about our inventory, and we can certainly make more profit, be more efficient, and be a better organization using NPA and Lightspeed.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great review of the Lightspeed inventory and reporting. Thank you, Brian. So just recap here. Why is it important that you turn your inventory regularly? I mean, we just walked through several examples of where inventory was older than a year old, which again is 6 book changes, been on the floor a while, customers already seen that vehicle, you've already marketed that vehicle. It's time to move on. To the right over here on this slide, you can see we built a little life cycle of a used vehicle. We'll start with the customer trades in. That's where at what point for the dealership you need to evaluate your bike. Again, this works for RV, marine, golf car as well. Evaluate that vehicle or that asset. Determine if you can recon that and you're going to retail it. It's something that you want on your dealership floor. If not, move it over to auction. Again, we say auction, but make sure that whatever you do, that you have your time frame in line and at that point that you decide that, hey, it was on my dealership floor for 90 days, didn't move, it's time to move on from that thing. So either send it to auction, sell it to a wholesaler, wherever the case is. Now, most of the time, what you're going to see to the left of that under 90 days is 18 to 23% margin on sale. That is what most dealers' average margin is for used vehicles. So this is extremely lucrative business when done right. So I don't want to just focus on the 10% negative where you have to sell it off, but overall the pre-owned inventory is extremely beneficial for your dealership. And for those times where you have that inventory that was unable to move, utilize the tools in NPA, utilize the tools that Lightspeed provides you to make sure that you get that off the floor, take that, sell that inventory, take that cash, reinvest it into new, fresh inventory that you know your customers are going to buy. That's all I have on my side, Brian.
Perfect. Well, in conclusion, we've talked about a number of things from National Powersport Auction as an entity. We talked about Lightspeed as an entity and as a company. We talked about some different tools that exist in both platforms, give you some statistics, some guides to manage your inventory, and some options if things aren't turning, which is that consigned to NPA function within Lightspeed, as well as on their own web platform. So some great ways that you can make sure that you're creating efficiencies, profiting most effectively in your business. And we certainly appreciate everybody's time and attention today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ryan. It was a pleasure working with you.
Same
And we
Appreciate
do
that.
we have a few questions too, so maybe we'll jump into some of those as well.
Great.
Couple questions too. One is probably first, even just for even Ryan, like a couple questions when people are looking at the consignment and there's the transportation costs. Do they get to see an estimate of that before they fully consign? Like, how does that actually work?
100%. If you're going to use our NPA transport, we will call you, tell you who the transporter is, tell you the cost, and tell you the date they're going to pick up before you say, okay, let's move forward.
Perfect. That's exactly what they were looking for. They didn't want to commit to something that was going to cause some other issues. The other question too, people are really interested in the value guides themselves. I mean, Brian, you showed a couple of different ways within Lightspeed. You can see the value guides, whether it's in the major unit or even like within the sale. Is there other ways that people can access those value guides?
In Lightspeed or?
Yeah, in Lightspeed or even from NPA directly.
Yeah, so NPA, I'll speak to NPA side. We have it on the desktop and we have it on our mobile app. So you're able to quickly pull up the information. So if you're either, sometimes it will happen, you're at dinner and someone says, oh, I got this, whatever, 2006 Street Glide. What's it worth? Hold on, let me figure that out for you. So yeah, there's multiple ways for dealers or to access the value guide.
Okay, and for that value guide from NPA, is there a fee for that, Ryan?
It comes with the membership. So we have an annual membership, $99, and that comes with that membership.
Excellent. Okay, I think that's kind of what they're asking for too. And I know, Brian, back to yours, like just showing it within the deal. I mean, that's kind of where I think people are really excited that they can, it makes more sense. I'm getting a trade in. How do I look at that? So that was really a helpful way to show that information.
Perfect. Yeah, we've got a couple of avenues which we illustrated in our presentation today to access those NPA guides. It's a powerful tool, making sure you're pricing things right, you're buying things right, you're managing your inventory appropriately. So great. We're very happy about it. Very excited about it.
Yeah, those were the major questions we came in. I don't know if there's anything else, Ryan or Brian, that you want to cover before we let everybody go today.
I would just like to end with thank you for joining the webinar. And if there's anything that you can take away from this webinar from NPA side is, please, when you're buying a trade-in, look at where you are in the season. Are you buying it in the spring? So you're buying it for top dollar. And if you don't sell it in 90 days, it's going to be a lower value. Or are you buying it in the fall and winter time? And in 90 days, if you need to get rid of it, you're going to be in the spring market and probably be able to break out of it at a wholesale value for even more than what you paid for it off the street.
Excellent. Excellent point. And of course, just leverage the tools that you have at your fingertips, whether it's mobile application, the desktop, what's with inside major unit inventory and the deal screen. We've got a number of tools available to you in Lightspeed so that you can appropriately manage your inventory.
Awesome. Thanks again, Ryan and Brian, and appreciate everybody attending today and enjoy your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.